Abundant life is what Jesus come to give us. Again, let me reiterate, John 10:10, the thief come not but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I've come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. Don't you want abundant joy, abundant peace, abundant mercy, abundant joy? Don't you want to have more than what you have? Peace is so important. Understanding is so important. Because, see, we're going somewhere. And when we leave this life, we need to know. Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go where I am, you shall come. For there are many mansions where our Lord is. So we need to know that one day we're going to have to go somewhere. So why don't you call on him today and get that abundant life? He has abundant grace. 2 Corinthians 9 and 8. Sometimes my eyes transpose words and letters, but that's okay. God straightened it all out. 2 Corinthians 9 and 8 says, and God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that you, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. Every good work that God has ordained for you can be accomplished. Because, see, the enemy is going to try to destroy that work. But we're praying that God would establish the work of your hands. And he establishes that work of your hands when you are washed in the blood, when you have called on Jesus Christ, when you give him your life and you say, Jesus, come into my life, save me. Lord, I want to be different. Then he can open up the windows of heaven and pour you out blessings that you have not room enough to receive. My brothers and sisters, his mercy is new every day, and his grace is abundant. Remember, the enemy comes to kill, to steal, and to destroy. But Jesus came that we might have life and that we may have it more abundantly. There's a way out of your mess, and it's JESUS.
Where can you buy a brand new Nissan with a lifetime warranty? Kingston Pike. Hey, folks, Gerald Anderson with Ted Russell Nissan. You heard it right. Every new Ted Russell Nissan comes with a lifetime warranty, and that's a long, long time. Ted Russell Nissan on Kingston Pike.
Good morning and welcome to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Ask Your Neighbor can also be heard and seen on our website, WYSHradio.com. And if you are in Anderson, Rome, or Morgan County and have Comcast cable, you can watch Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV Channel 12. Ask Your Neighbor is the program where you call in and do just that. Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a comment? Do you have a problem? Or do you have a question? Then call in and ask your neighbor. 865-457-1380 or toll free at 877-711-4005. And for those of you that might be listening or watching on the internet, you can email from our website, WYSHradio.com. Just click on the Contact Us button and email your questions. Now sit back and listen as listeners throughout East Tennessee and the entire world answer your questions on Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV 12 and AM 1380 WYSH.
Pre-recorded best of edition of Ask Your Neighbor on WYSH. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into Tuesday edition of Ask Your Neighbor. Our guest this morning, Court Clerk Rex Lynn. It's been a long time since you've been here, pal.
It's been a while.
It has been. I mean,
I used to enjoy my monthly meetings.
Oh yeah, we had a good time.
We did.
I've told people before. I said, you know, I've had disagreements with all kinds of political figures in the world, but we always seem to get along. I said, ask Rex. Me and him argued once a month.
Well, we did.
I saw Myron at Rick Scarborough's kickoff.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Myron, have we ever bought that industrial property we raised taxes to put the money aside for yet?
No, we haven't.
He just laughed at me and said, Ron. I said, we haven't, had we? I said, you owe me a bet because I bet you we wouldn't. And we still haven't.
No.
We raised taxes, 3 or 4 cents, and all of that money was supposed.
Future industrial property purchases.
That's what it was for.
Used as a slush fund.
We've used it for everything you can think of, and we've not bought the first piece of property, which I said we wouldn't. But there you go. So, but again, we were friendly and still are, and we can have disagreements.
Yeah.
And you and I had a lot of them, but. I miss having Terry come up once a month or whomever. I miss that because it's
Way
good
to get the
for
word
people.
out. I mean, a lot of people don't know, don't follow. The papers don't get the distribution they used to have. And,
Sure.
And people don't know what's going on. But this is it's a good opportunity, a good outlet. I enjoyed it.
Well, and I appreciate you for doing it. I appreciate you for coming up here on this. This is a big deal. We just went through a big deal, didn't we?
It was a big deal.
I don't think that well, even I didn't realize the scope of it until after I spoke to you a little bit and looking into it. Man, the trial, how long did it take from the time that they found the guy, arrested him, to get to trial?
I had to go back and make notes.
Okay.
One thing, we've not had a murder trial that's went like this since 2016, a death penalty case.
So we did have a death penalty case in
2016.
I couldn't remember
And the case, the guy did not get the death penalty. He got life, but did not get death.
Okay.
And so, it doesn't happen very often. The process to get there, there's a lot to it. There's nobody left in my office that was here in 2016. I think there might be 2 left, but they weren't really involved in the trial. So, and I didn't have a book or a manual to say this is how you do this.
Yeah.
And so I've made some notes and hopefully and there's actually one coming up in a couple of years that could be worse than this one.
Here?
Yes.
So wow. Okay.
So it's courts may work it all out, but whatever. But there's a death penalty case kind of in the horizon.
Okay. So first of all, what all goes into it? We sequester juries on all death penalty cases, or it just
it just depends. They typically are.
Okay. That's
the rule of thumb. The judge will make that call.
Yeah.
But the timeline, as you say, August 5th of 2020, Finnegan was arrested.
Okay.
So that's
Shoot.
So we're in. It's a 4-year process to get to where we got.
Wow. Okay.
It always starts everything always starts in general sessions. Sometimes they can send, from the grand jury, they can send it straight to the criminal court, but typically everything has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So general sessions is where it started, and it got bound over to the grand jury, March. So there's a time. So and in March of 2021, the grand jury got it, and then June 1st of 2021, the indictment went out. That was the formal notice that said, hey, we want to press charges on this guy. So on June 2nd, he was actually arrested. He was already in jail, but he was arrested on the charge, on the indictment. And then June 3rd, he was arraigned. Formally, the formal reading where they read him the charges of what he's getting, been charged of. So then the next few years, it all starts going on. So for the next 2.5 years, there was a lot of motions made in court. He gets a court-appointed attorney. They have to be death penalty certified. So the courts, we've got a lot of stuff for those 2 years. But then on, on April the 18th, 2024, this year, that's when the rubber started hitting the road. We actually sent out 1,000 summons to citizens across Andrews County. So they were mailed out.
That's to get jurors, right?
That's for our jurors.
Okay.
So 1,000 summons went out. Out of those 1,000, about 500 were already excused they had major medical reasons. They have to bring me a letter from the doctor. We have to send all those things to the judge. I can't, in this case, is such a high profile. My hands are off. It's all, the judge has to approve everything.
Yeah.
So we'll send all those to the judge. So he excused about 500 for medical reasons. The people's no longer a resident of Anderson County. They've got a criminal record. If you got a student that's living off campus, they don't. The law actually doesn't take them out of classroom.
Gotcha.
So they get excused. So that was on April the 18th. On May the 13th, a month later, we had jury orientation when the judge came in. We had Judge Ash came in.
How do you narrow it down from 500 to however many you orientate?
So we started, 500, we had orientation. That's where, and so this judge He's a senior judge. I think he's out of north middle Tennessee somewhere. Great, he's a retired judge, but senior judge. But he was fabulous. I'm telling you, he was a fabulous judge. So we invite 500 people to come to the courthouse for jury orientation. We filled up every courtroom we could find on the third floor. We had them packed in everywhere.
I was going to say, where?
It was crazy as far as parking.
So they all.
Everybody came.
Oh wow.
Wow. And so we probably, that day, they had a chance to speak if they had other reasons why they couldn't serve. The judge would, he let probably 40 or 50 go immediately, get them, cull them out.
Mm-hmm.
We had a 200 and let's see, it was about a 20. I think it was about a 26-page questionnaire that was prepared in the state of Tennessee about your beliefs, anything that might have issues that might tell the state what your personal life is. What
like
your
if you don't believe in
are.
the death penalty.
Yeah, that's one of the questions. Do you believe in the death penalty? If you check no, they're going to come in and ask you that, but you're gone. If you don't believe in that. So that was a long day. We had getting everybody in and out. So
and now what were your responsibilities kind of corral? I mean, what were your responsibilities in that? Was it your office that you got them in and found them the rooms?
Yeah, we had to find the rooms. We have to prepare the questionnaires. We have to make sure. Everybody's got to have a pen. Everybody's got to. Everybody's got to find a place to park. I've got to coordinate with City of Clinton. Hey, please don't write no parking tickets today.
Yeah.
And so after those, they filled out the questionnaires. They got to leave. So the judge took those back, and he reviewed every one of them. And he's got an assistant that works for the state of Tennessee that actually helps him. It's a judicial assistant. Trying to think here. After reviewing those first time, he cut it in half. So we had about 250 that actually made the cut that from after reading the questionnaires that they could potentially be a good juror. So on June the 24th through the 28th, we lined up the whole week. Every day we'd bring in 30 in the morning, 30 in the afternoon to sit down. And so that for the chance for the judge and the lawyers to start asking them individual questions.
Is this where the lawyers get to pick and choose and say,
It was kind of like it's called it voir dire. It's kind of like the pre-voir dire process.
Okay.
And so those 5 days the judge wanted to get, his opinion was we need to get about 70 jurors in our pool to pick from. Some of us our number was more like 85 or 90 because you've always got people that don't really realize how serious this is until the day they show up for court.
Gotcha.
When it starts. And so we started Monday morning, Monday afternoon. We went and so Thursday afternoon, we actually had 85 potential jurors, and he was like, that's enough, cut it off. So Friday, if you were on the list to come in on Friday, you were excused.
Okay.
And they were happy because they knew what was going on. So that was on June the 28th. August the 12th was the first day of court. That was on a Monday.
Yeah.
And that was the true voir dire. So we had 85 people come in that day, and even that day we probably had another 7 or 8 that came in with vacations they had scheduled, they had surgery scheduled, they had some type of illness that the judge went ahead and excused them for that. So we spent most of the day. It was probably late in the afternoon. He narrowed it down, and he got 12 jurors and 4 alternates.
Is the courthouse open to the public when that's going on?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's nothing. Nothing was closed on this.
Okay.
Media was left out at this point in time because we didn't. And there's really nothing for the media for their cameras to see at this point.
Sure.
We're just trying to select jurors. What's your beliefs? Try to make sure you're a good fit for this trial. So
you don't really want the media knowing who the jurors are anyway.
And they know before. And I've got to say, the media. Let me tell you about that. So we got our 12 jurors and 4 alternates. At that time, they're all jurors. There's 16 jurors. There is no alternate. We have 4 extras, but we wait. So the full 16 hear the whole trial, and toward the end, he'll select the 12 he wants, or not. He'll randomly pick 12 names out of a hat.
Gotcha.
And then the 4 will be excused, or they'll be set to the side. So he does that to make sure that you're paying attention. Because if you're an alternate from day one, you're probably thinking, I don't have to do this. I got other things to do. So no, you don't know until the trial's over with if you're going to be a juror or not. So the media, we had requests literally from all over the state of Tennessee, and even foreign requests about having media in the room.
Well, it was on national. It was like on Court TV or one of those things.
The judge has to make a decision. If you let all these, because used to you'd see all the cameras in the courtrooms and stuff. Well, now we've got Court TV. Yeah. And Court TV is professional. That's their job. I mean, they're pro. I call them, they're pros in this business. Yeah. And so they were approved to bring their camera system in, and it was neat. They had a box outside right outside the cameras, and any other media outlet, WBIR, WAT, they can plug their equipment into it. There's a little plug for it, and then they could go out in their van. They could go home. They could sit outside, but they got live feed from that box.
Oh, that's cool.
And Court TV knows, they know the rules. You don't show a juror. There's certain evidence the judge is so grotesque. He may say, you don't show this, and no questions asked. Where if you have some other,
Yeah, if I was doing it, I'd be like, well,
exactly. I'll show this. I'm going to show this. So they were extremely professional. I mean, they brought in a semi full of equipment, cameras. It's a pretty impressive. I never heard of Court TV.
It's like game day rolling in.
Yeah, it was. And I've had people tell me that they watch Court TV all the time.
Oh yeah.
I've never heard of it.
Oh Lord, Tracy's watched it all through the.
So they were very good. I mean, I couldn't have asked for I'm just thankful I didn't have to make that decision. But the judge, he was aware of that, so that was all done. So that Monday afternoon, we got our 16 jurors, and let's see here, August. Oh yeah, so it's kind of neat because the jurors were then. He said, "All right, guys, you're it. Everybody else, you're free to go." So he told the 16. He said, "I'll tell you what, go home, pack your bags for 2 weeks, tell your loved ones goodbye because you're not going to be seeing them. You're not going to talk to them. Bring any snacks that you want, and come back here tomorrow morning." So they got to go home and literally imagine packing your bags for 2 weeks.
No, I can't.
I've never been gone for 2 weeks. I mean, I don't got just luggage. I don't know if I got enough clothes.
Exactly.
And so
really,
so in the meantime, I've had to go ahead and so the work I'm doing behind the scenes is what do we do with these jurors every day? I got to find a hotel that'll accommodate them. So I find a hotel up interstate that's actually they've done this before. The manager had done this in Knoxville, so they were very familiar with the process.
That's good.
We have to have the whole floor of the hotel. No phones. All the phones have to be taken out. TVs taken off the walls. It's a bare room.
And we're responsible when the hotel does that we have to pay them to do that.
So I go to them.
Wow, so they don't even get TV.
No. So I have to find a hotel that'll accommodate. I try to get somebody with a government rate. I try to get, I won't put them in a dump. I don't see names, but I try to find a hotel that's got a good reputation, that has a good breakfast bar, because that way I have to feed them too. The county, the county has to feed them.
Sure.
So, find a restaurant that has a good breakfast bar. The hotel's got a good reputation, and so I found one, and I told them, listen, we'll be here on Monday, and we'll be here for maybe up to 2 weeks. So I said, I need you to block this whole floor of rooms off for 2 weeks. And the manager says, no problem. Just tell me when you're going to be here.
Wow.
And so we had to reserve 16 rooms. Every juror got their own room.
Yeah.
And we had to have one room for we call it the deputies supply room. We don't have deputies needing to spend the night, but they need a place to put their gear, any of their personal stuff. We had some food and snacks and stuff I need to have a room for. So 17 rooms is what the county had to pay for.
Wow. And
that was a pretty, and I got a breakdown of all the costs. I'll give you later on. So that's kind of, and so then I had to line up, lunch and dinner every night for 16 plus probably 6 to 8 deputies.
Yeah.
So basically 25 people every day I had to provide lunch and dinner for. So one of my clerks, she loves to organize, and she plans. She says, let me take care of that. So I told her, let's do Buddy's barbecue, or you just walk them across the street. They got the little room in the back.
Yeah.
We could seclude them. And they got a good variation of, for lunch items, so they get to pick from. Because, when you get 16 people, you got vegans, you got dietary restrictions, you got allergies,
diabetes.
I was just scared to death. Like, what am I? That was one of my fears, is trying to provide food and you have, one or two that can't eat what everybody else does.
Yeah.
And so we had a calendar for 2 weeks and had lunch set up, who was going to do it. So we had to go meet with the restaurants or the Chick-fil-A or Apple Blossom or wherever it was and say, here's a calendar. We're going to be here on this day at this time. And I need, 25 seats. Or I need food for this much. And so everybody, it worked very well, our calendar. So I gave everybody a calendar so they'd know, the jurors.
Yeah.
And I said, look at the calendar for, y'all decide. Like one day, I think we had, I don't know. I'm just making, say it wasn't Crystal, but say it was Crystal.
All right.
If there's two, just 8, that's awful. Well, okay, well, I'll change it. So I showed them the menus and what we were eating, and they were very accommodating. They were very good. A few of them had some particular things they couldn't eat, but they never complained. And so, particularly for lunch, we would either go get the box lunches. We'd bring them in. A couple times we went to Hoskins. And dinner was the same thing. We would.
Where did they eat at the courthouse? Did they just go out, set the table outside?
We've got a jury room.
Okay.
It's a small room, and for 16, it's about too cramped. But the chancellor courtroom, Chancery Court, we got to go in there a couple times. We went to county commission room one time.
Okay.
And everywhere they go, they've got to have 2 or 3 deputies watching them. I mean, so I've got to feed the deputy. We got to feed the deputies too. They're on duty. And so we'd put half in this room, or split them up. There always have to be at least 2 deputies. So we'd have, I'd say 6, sometimes 8 deputies watching them. So so the sheriff's department really had to work their schedule because these deputies they're not used to working 24/7, and this is a 24/7 operation.
So Russell had to keep somebody on the clock with him all the time.
At the hotel, we had to have somebody on each end of the hotel room. That we kept that whole floor, the 3rd floor. So the deputy stayed on each end of the floor room to make sure nobody wandered up in there or nobody wandered out. The jurors couldn't get in the middle of the night and go, hey, I need to go outside and smoke. No, you can go outside, but you better get 2 more with you, and then we'll call an officer to come with you, and you can go outside and do that. So they had to be chaperoned the whole time. They could never be out of sight.
Wow.
One night at the hotel, they did have somebody came in a little bit drunk, and he wandered up to the 3rd floor and was wandering around, and and that's what you just can't have anybody coming in to taint the pool of jurors.
Sure,
you can't. So, that was on the. So the jurors were happy. It was kind of like a field trip. They came in with their luggage. We met the first day at the hotel. We let them go and check in their rooms, give them their keys to their room. We had to label each room was like, I give jurors one. So I decided to call them, not go by names. You're juror number 3 or you're juror number 12.
Okay.
So for 2 weeks, that was your name.
Juror 12.
Juror 12 or juror 1 or whatever. And they kind of liked that.
Okay.
We gave them a name badge and had their number on it. The room was based on that. So when we brought in food, box lunches, it was easy. Just put what juror number it is, so we could handle them out that way. So we had to go to Walmart and stock up supplies.
Did you call or consult any other clerks that maybe had gone through this prior before it happened? Did you reach out for any help?
And like I said, I really just did this. We winged it.
Didn't know what you were in for till you got it.
Didn't have a clue because you don't have. And you probably went to Knox County, and they probably have that more often than we do. But most of your counties, there's very few sequestered trials.
Yeah.
It's just so we had to stock up supplies. So you think about it. For 2 weeks, I gave everybody a sheet. It says, tell me your favorite snack, what's your favorite drink, anything else that you might need. Somebody had a special drink they had to drink every morning. It was some type of protein.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a monster drink, but it was actually a dietary
supplement.
I had to go get that for one of them. I bought. We went to Walmart with 3. We had 3 carts. We come out of there with soft drinks and water and juices and Gatorade and chips, and it was crazy.
You had to sustain people through their snacks and food and everything for 2 weeks, or ready for 2 weeks.
These people they're giving their time back to the county.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to have a miserable experience outside the courtroom. I'm trying to make it as comfortable as a uncomfortable situation as you can find.
Sure.
I mean, you're stuck in a hotel room for 2 weeks, and you don't have any. Your family. You don't have any any communication with your family.
It's not like they could just get out and take a walk or anything else either, right?
If you got 3 or 4 and you can get one of the deputies to go with you, they might go out and walk around the parking lot or something.
Okay.
But that was it. So each night they had to turn their cell phones in when they first arrived, and so the sheriff's office put each one in a little private bag. Each night they were allowed to make one phone call for 5 minutes, with a deputy sitting beside them with the speakerphone on.
Wow.
And so I'd go up there. Every once in a while I'd check on them in the evenings, and sure enough, they'd all be down the hallway, and each one be with a deputy, and you'd hear them on the speakerphone talking to their wives. But they couldn't discuss the case. And that was the strict order from the judge. He said, you can talk about anything you want, but don't you mention this case. Because it's going to be on TV, and your wife or whoever's going to say, well, what happened on this?
Mm-hmm.
Off limits. You can't do it. We normally got back to the hotel by 6 p.m. We stayed in court till 5:30, sometimes 6. But we were back at the hotel by no later than 6:30. I try to have their food. I'd have one of my clerks go ahead and go get the food, bring it back so it'd be warm for them. Have it all laid out on the table, and we, like I said, Buddy's barbecue one time. So we laid up there, and they got to go through. And so they gave us the banquet room there at the hotel, and that was our room. Nobody else could come in there. They couldn't leave unless an officer with them, and nobody was allowed to come in. And so by 7:30, some of them just say, "Hey, Lee, I'm ready to go to bed." Well, there's an officer on the 3rd floor watching, so they could go and have to have an officer escort them up there, and he'd hand them off to the officer on the 3rd floor, and they go back downstairs.
Wow.
We actually got a TV down there, and we hooked up Netflix, and they watched just a few movies, but they had to be approved by the judge. It couldn't be any crime movie. It could be there was actually an adult cartoon, kind of like The Simpsons or something like that. They could watch something like that. But they watched a little bit of TV, not much. Played cards, puzzles. I couldn't tell me puzzles. I went back to Walmart, and I bought, some of my employees brought in some puzzles. I bought some extra puzzles at Walmart. They just sit and work puzzles, and they got along. I was amazed how this group just bonded together.
Are they allowed to talk about the case amongst themselves outside of the court? No.
The judge says, I can't. You all get over your little thing. You can, but please do not discuss. Once you leave here, no mention anything about this case. And so they were pretty good. They took their job very serious. We worked on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
The judge said, listen, you got nothing else to do. Quicker we get through this, quicker you get to go home. So they all agreed. Saturday's fine. So we were on court all day Saturday. We did take Sundays off, and had a few people. One of them wanted to. He said, "Can I watch my church service on TV?" The judge said, "Nope." One of them wanted to say, "Hey, what about can we get a few and go to church?" I said, "No, can't leave." So
they just was there all day Sunday.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. So we just had one Sunday.
Yeah.
That particular Sunday, it was a sunny day, and the judge told him, said, "Bring your swim trunks if you want to go by the pool." And there was about 4 of them that went up and sat by the pool just to get outside in the sun.
Well, sure.
Some of them sat there and worked puzzles. Some went up in the room and they read. They bring reading material, and whatever book you brought, the judge had to approve the book.
Oh, wow.
So you could murder mystery book, not allowed. I mean, it's
wow.
So like I said, lots of puzzles. Deputies were great. It actually became like a small family.
I was going to say,
the relationships you could just watch every day. They got closer and closer, and everybody's first name basis, and the deputies were part of them, and they wanted the deputies to play games with them, and so it was pretty neat. So, but that was. Let's see what else we got here.
That's just amazing.
No newspapers. We had to be careful. Like in the morning at the hotel, the breakfast room had some TVs in the wall, and I told the manager, I says, "Can you turn those off?" And they turned them off. We went to their big dinner was Harrison's on Sunday night.
Yeah.
So we walked them across the street. Same thing. I said, "Hey, listen, can you turn any type of TVs off?" And so they got a really nice meal on Sunday night. That was probably the most expensive meal we had to provide.
Okay.
Let's see. Everybody had Hotel was great about the breakfast. I mean, they actually, the lady that worked the breakfast, she became part of their family too. And she actually did a few extra things. She knew how to cook some extra stuff.
That's cool.
The meals was, we probably had a couple of places that when I brought the meal in, I was kind of embarrassed because they were cold and they weren't packaged very good. And I hated that, but we made up for snacks. Like I said, they have every kind of snack you could think of.
That's awesome. I guess it's hard to make something like that a good situation, but at the same time, the people that are doing it as a service.
Yeah, and they took it serious. That's what I was afraid of. You always get somebody in a group that causes problems, and we had one that might have been a little bit difficult, but in the end of the day, they took. I was surprised how taking notes. Man, they had their notebooks. I had to go back and buy more filler notebook paper because they took so many notes. I mean, that's how serious they took it. So that's kind of for 2 weeks and a half, we went through all that. On Friday, August the 16th, that would have been the end of the first week. The trial actually went pretty quick. I was surprised how quick it went. So on that afternoon, I think it was Friday, the judge randomly picked at that point the 12 jurors and 4 alternates. Now, at this point, the 4 alternates were still part of it, but they could not be part of the group. We had to separate them.
Oh, wow.
And that was.
So did the alternates sit and hear the cases as well? But at the end of the day, they weren't with the other 12.
Yeah, we had to keep them separate. And
why is that?
I don't know. Because the judge said so.
Okay.
And so that was. And it kind of hurt your feelings because, I mean, they had become
buddies.
And now all of a sudden, boom, you all sit over here and we sit over here, and don't you all talk. You can't eat together.
Oh, wow.
So, and that took a few extra deputies because now we had to have these 4 over here that were
guarded separate.
Yeah, breakfast. I'd had to put them over here separate. 2 deputies. The rest of you go into here with 2 or 3 deputies. So that was a long weekend.
Is this kind of standard procedure, or does each judge create their own standard procedure inside of, I guess, kind of like a template, you know?
The way I talk to the judge about it, they all can handle it different ways. What he wants to do, his ultimate goal is to have this trial completed without an appeal. He doesn't want to give them every death penalty case gets an automatic appeal where they can send it but it doesn't mean you're going to have a new trial.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to give them something that's going to cause this to be a
new trial.
Yeah, where it gets default. I don't know what the exact terminology is, but where he automatically gets a new trial.
Yeah.
So that's what he's so careful. So he goes overboard, but he was good.
And how does he get picked? State pick him?
State does.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to be death penalty certified, and there's just a handful of those. And then the lawyers, his court-appointed attorney had to be death penalty certified. Of course, Dave Clark, some of his staff are death penalty certified.
Yeah.
And so that was on Friday. I made a note here.
Did you sit in on all of the? Because on TV, I saw you in a number of the hearings or whatever. But did you sit in through the whole thing and listen?
No, I have one of my clerks has to be there at all times, just in case there's a file that's needed. We just have to be there. So I have two of my clerks that are call my senior clerks that do the criminal activities, and so they were there the whole time.
Okay.
I was in and out. I'd get tired of sitting outside the judge. I might go stand by the door. I was actually, it's a learning process for me too.
Sure.
I want to see what's going on because hopefully we don't do this again. But if I do, I want to be prepared to kind of know what to expect. So on Monday. So that Monday, the 19th, the jurors came back with a guilty verdict. There's 13 counts, and 2 of them they found not guilty, and 11 the counts were guilty. So that's all it was. It wasn't a sentence. It was just, are you guilty or not?
I remember the verdict came in. Me and Russell were live on the air when the verdict came in.
Yeah. And so the judge, so at that time, we had 4 alternates. The judge said, all right, I'm going to excuse 2 of the alternates. And so they they were glad. They were kind of disappointed because, they'd followed the whole thing, and you want to see it to conclusion.
Yeah.
And so two of them got to go back to the hotel, pack up, and go home. So at that point, he's guilty. So now we have to start the sentencing phase. So you're going to get the death penalty. You're going to get life. You're going to get whatever it may be. So that's where they present what's called the aggravators and the mitigators. So the aggravators are things like they talked about how brutal the murder was, all the, how sick some of these things were.
Yeah.
The mitigators were things they brought in, and we had to pay for. The county had to pay for it. We brought in his ex-sister-in-law. I think she lived in Indiana or Ohio. So we had to bring her here, put her up in a hotel room, pay for her meals, which I thought was kind of, I don't understand that, but he's indigent. He doesn't have any money, and his defense, the state law says we have to do that. So she comes in and she talks about his upbringing. He had, 6 or 7 brothers, a sister, his dad, the abuse, everything. They try to say, listen, the reason he did this was because of his upbringing.
Gotcha.
So you don't need to be as harsh on your penalty because these are the mitigating factors which caused him to act like this.
Gotcha.
So they have to present all that. And then
does his judge or does his attorney tell you we would like this person to come and speak? And that who picks that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they came to me ahead of time, and because we had to make arrangements, they were like, we actually had he had actually been a current sister-in-law and brother that lives in Florida, and they wanted them to come up, and they sent out subpoenas, and the family didn't want to come. They said let him fry. They didn't want to come, but the law says you have to give them that opportunity.
Really?
So his attorneys subpoenaed them, and in the day they called. They were pretty rough on the phone about why they didn't want to come, and so at the end of the day, his lawyer said just let them go, and so he said we've got to.
It would have probably hurt him worse than helped him, obviously.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they wanted him to come to talk about his upbringing.
Yeah.
Not what their opinion is of what he is now. And so the lady came in from Ohio, and she really did a great job, and she kind of explained, kind of understand why, some of these people, the way they're raised, they're abused. No, it's a sick world.
Yeah.
And how our system lets this go on. That's, we got here in Anderson County.
I know.
It's just, and so another part of one of the aggravator was, this was the greatest part. The DA thought of this. They brought in the freezer. Oh, you should have seen everybody in the court like, oh my gosh, is it still got blood in it? Is there what's left in it? But that was kind of that was done for stage praise. They brought the freezer in, they set it up there by the judge's bench, and so they talked about that, and then the medical examiner came. I can't remember when the medical examiner. She was probably here the week before, but she did a great job, and she had a mannequin set up, and every cut, every bruise, every mutilation, she'd put little spots on this mannequin. And that thing was just covered with red and black little fuzzy dots that they put on to show all the places she was cut, beat, bruised, whatever. So that was one of the aggravators as well. They left that up there the whole time. So, but she did the county's been, actually I helped, when I was in office, me and Dave Clark went, we contracted Melesnovic, or she's German, but she was the medical examiner we hired back in the day, and she's still the medical examiner for a lot of the counties around here. That's all she does.
Okay.
She is, she's top notch. They had pictures of the body, how it's mutilated and all that, showed all the jurors, and that's where the court TV knew don't show this. The judge says you can show this, but don't show these. And they're like, no problem. You tell us what to do.
Wow.
So that was the mitigators and the aggravators. So then on Tuesday afternoon, let's see here. Remember where I at?
Do you know if they offered him a plea? I know that they offered the girl a plea. What did she got, like 200 years or something?
They needed her testimony. The way I understand it, they needed her testimony, and so they offered her life without the death penalty.
Yeah.
and there's some other stuff going on. I think she got life plus 50 years or something. So she's going to spend the rest of her life in jail. Yeah. But they wanted, I think the state wanted the death penalty on this guy. It's so heinous what he did. They want
just from what I watched, and it was her testimony, I saw a lot of it. It was, I don't know. She explained it with no expression whatsoever.
Well, and if you ever watched him on there, I mean, he had no expression.
I saw it just when they cut to him sitting there. He just sitting there looking.
He would just sit there and stare.
To myself, they've got him on he's got tranquilizers or something, surely. I don't know.
I think he was on some type of meds. I think one day he didn't maybe take his meds. I listen a lot about, but he did. When he talked about his dad upbringing, how his dad abused him, beat him, and all the stuff that happened when he was a child, somebody said they saw him a couple tears run down. You could tell him thinking about that, but very, very little emotion. And when they showed the bodies, the cut-ups, all that stuff, he just stood there and just watched.
Oh, Lord.
So that was so we let a couple of jurors go. So then we still had two alternates that couldn't be there. They couldn't be part of deliberation. They couldn't go back there while the 12 were deliberating. We had to put them in our new witness rooms, and they had to sit there for 2 days in the witness rooms all by themselves.
The two alternates?
Yeah. And I didn't understand that, but they couldn't be part of the deliberating, the ones deliberating. That was just the rule.
Well, probably if they ended up hung, would they bring the other two in? I don't know.
So you keep them around in case somebody gets sick or something happens, and then if you bring them in, then to me you have to start the whole deliberating again.
Yeah.
That was the judge's rule.
Okay.
So they deliberated Tuesday afternoon, and then on Wednesday they came in, and it was around 12 o'clock. They handed the death penalty. And to be honest, I think the word, you listen to everybody, nobody was really sure that he pulled the trigger. The girl, Dishman, was just as much part of it as he was. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's just...
She participated in all of it from her own testimony.
The wagering around the courthouse was, well, he's going to get life, but I doubt if he's going to get the death penalty. So the jurors came back, and the verdict was death. So the verdict form on the first three charges, the premeditated first-degree murder of Miss Paxton, he was found guilty of negligent homicide. He was not found guilty of first degree, and that's where we thought the death penalty come from. But the first three charges were all death penalty charges. And so the second verdict was guilty of first-degree felony murder during the perpetration or attempt to perpetrate aggravated rape. That's what he was guilty of.
Wow.
And first-degree felony murder of her during the perpetration of a kidnap or perpetrated aggravated kidnapping. So he was part of it. So they can't say they pulled a trigger, but he was part of the kidnapping and part of the aggravated rape, which led to her death, because they know he was involved with that.
Did they shoot her? Or did they choke her? How did they end up? How did
the cause of death seemed to be where she was strangled?
That's what I thought.
They had marks on her neck, and that's what appears to be. But they kidnapped her based on the testimony. They
chained her to a bed.
Yeah,
didn't they?
Kidnapped her, brought her back. They chained her up. His mother was still alive with cancer and had morphine. And they feel like that they had probably doped her up with drugs and morphine and chained her to the bed. And she probably laid there 3 or 4 days just chained up. They take a bedpan over there for her, all that stuff. And it was just unbelievable. And then he'd go off to work.
Yeah.
And then he'd come back home. And at some point in time, that's what they when she finally was deceased, they called up Rent Center and said, "Hey, bring us a freezer. You don't mind bringing?"
I saw she talked about they had it downstairs, and he was afraid his mother was going to look in it, so he turned it around. Then they ended up, him and her, carrying it up the stairs.
So can you imagine the Render Center guy? He went into the house where there's a dead body, and she's like, "Hey, here's your freezer." And they
wow.
So So that's kind of where it ended up. The verdict was death, and but just my notes are here. I just want my staff, for never doing this before. God, so impressed. They had lots of overtime. They had to work weekends. All the scheduling the events, the whole jury process. The deputies couldn't have had thank Sheriff Barker and his deputies. None of them complained. They became part of that small family. The jurors they were just bragging on about everybody. They actually want to have a reunion. We met with them after the judge came. Yeah. The judge came and met with them and told them, the trial's over. If you want to talk to the media, you can. It's your call. Because I had some media that would like to wanted to talk to them, so I emailed each juror and I said, if you want to talk to Ron Meredith, WYSH, here's his phone number.
Sure.
But you don't have to call him.
Sure.
And so I think there was actually one that talked off camera and one talked on camera, but wanted her face blacked out.
Yeah.
So I saw the interview. So it was, and they all came out afterwards, and they were some of them crying. It was very emotional.
I was going to say it has to
change. At that point, you're determined this guy's, if he's going to live or die. And it's as brutal as it is to take somebody's life, that's tough.
Oh, I agree.
We talk about God kill that.
Yeah,
God kill it. Yeah, but when it comes time,
yeah,
man. So there's going to be an appeal process. There's going to be.
Do we do that?
No, he'll be sent up to Knoxville at the appeal court. I was told by one of the attorneys that we're trying to follow Texas, the rules that Texas has about a 4 or 5 year process where when you're sentenced like this guy was, in 5 years you're going to the death chamber.
Gotcha.
Ours has been a lot longer than that. We've had people been there for
20 years.
We're trying to change. I don't know exactly what we're changing, but I suspect 10, 12 years. I don't know if he'll live that long. He's 50. I think he was mid-50s. Now she's gonna not, and I don't say jokingly talk about this, but at Dishman, she was the biggest winner of all this. Mm-hmm. Her whole life, her father was I think a minister. She had some real issues at home. As soon as she was of age, she hit the streets, got into drugs, went from home to home and she talked about being engaged. She's
engaged like 5 or 10 times.
She would find somebody on Facebook and say, how can I move in with you? And that was her engaged. So she was always kicked out. She never had a home, always struggled for meals. And one of the lawyers made the point, she's going to be fine. She's got for the rest of her life, she's got a roof over her head. She's got 3 meals, and she's going to probably have sex anytime she wants to. She had a situation at Harris County Jail where she had a situation with one of the jailers.
Which I remember when the jailer got in trouble.
So everybody's like, "Oh, I remember that now. That's the guy."
Yeah,
and that really was. The judicial system was very concerned that how that would affect this case. We didn't know if that would spoil it or not and cause for mistrial, but it didn't, and so that was good. But yeah, so she's a big winner. She's never had a home, and she'll be fine.
She won't even know what she's missing.
Nah, it's a better life. It'll probably be a better life than she would have had any other way.
Wow,
that's sad.
And when you listen to it, she would talk about going to the neighbors and borrowing the neighbor's phone and all that, and why not? Oh. I was just like, why? She acted like she was held there. It's just like, why didn't you leave? Why,
So a lot of people says, well, what did this cost? So we did a breakdown.
Russell told me it was like over $100,000.
Well, we planned. when I first started this, again, I'm a numbers guy.
Yeah.
I'm figuring 2 weeks hotel, food, I came up with $70,000. So with the county commission, I said, hey, my revenues last year were really good, and I said my revenues are going to be over $70,000 more than I projected. So could you take that money and just put it in a reserve code for this trial? So we'll use that as maybe that's enough, may not be, but as a starting point. So we had $70,000 in a pot of money this year for this trial. So the hotel, When I closed out, it was $16,000 for the hotel.
Not bad.
So I'd planned on like 24,000, but I thought we'd be there two full weeks. So that took care. And like I say, we got free breakfast every morning, which was very good. So meals, typically a meal for 25 people ran about $250 to $300, maybe $350.
Okay.
Walmart supplies, we spent probably a little over $1,000 on drinks, chips, snacks, puzzles, things like that. Like I said, the big dinner was that ain't right. Somebody missed that one. The Harrisons was with tip and all was probably close to $700. So all in all, let's see, food, hotel was about $24,000. Our special witness, we had to bring that lady in, the ex-sister-in-law. That cost us about $1,000. The jury payments. So a typical jury, if you're called in for a pettit juror trial right now, we'll pay you $11 a day. Is what the state says we have to pay you. And every time you come, you get $11. Well, on a capital case, you get $30 a day.
So these people,
they got $30. So we wound up paying about $4,700 to all the jurors. So all those 500 that came in that first day, they get a check.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Every day that you're there dealing with the court, you get paid. So we sent a bunch of checks out.
Wow.
And sheriff's overtime, that's a number I don't have a good feel for. I went and talked to the budget office. I'm afraid it's probably in the $25,000 range.
Okay.
My staff, we probably had about $3,000 in overtime. So I think the total bill was right around probably $65,000.
Okay.
So, it wasn't a lot of money. And so I was like, okay, who at the state of Tennessee do I send this bill to so I can get reimbursed? They looked at me real funny and goes, no, this is on you. It's on Anderson County.
Yeah.
So Anderson County paid the full bill. No reimbursement.
Wow. I don't think folks understand. I don't. I had no idea of everything that went into it. You see it, you know that it's a jury, and you know that they're sequestered, but all the little details that go through with it, I guess unless you're a clerk or part of it, you have no idea.
And I was exhausted.
What did you take away?
So it was actually when it was finished. So the jury, he asked me, he said, how many of these you done before? I said, man, I'll be honest, Judge. I said, I've never. I said, I know there's no manual for this. He said, we need to go on the road with this. He said, contact your clerks association and tell them you want to put a class on about how to do jury trials and invite me, and I'll be your guest speaker. And I said, well, I appreciate that.
That's quite the compliment.
That made me feel good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think, again, you are a numbers guy and a details guy, and that probably has a whole lot to do with it, because I wonder how many times, it's fallen through the cracks. Somebody was supposed to order lunch or whatever didn't.
Yeah.
And, that, I guess you got to make it as pleasant as you can for these jurors. Like I said, they're given their time for the most part. It's a service that they're doing, even though they're, demanded to do it. But still, you want to make them as comfortable and to make that kind of decision. You want them to be as in good frame of mind as you can have them.
Some people kind of frowned at me like, you're getting... So that Sunday when we had to split the jurors up, I had 4 alternates that I couldn't let mingle with the other 12. Some of them want to go lay by the pool. Some want to go read, play puzzles. Those 4 were stuck there by themselves like they had the plague. What do you do with them?
Yeah.
We sent them to the movie.
Oh, really?
So I said, well, let's call the judge, make sure it's approved. And what's that twist? Is it Twister?
The Twister, yeah, the new Twister.
So I got online and I had 2 deputies and four of them, and we bought them tickets and we put them in a van and get out of here. They went and watched the movie all afternoon.
Well, that's pretty cool,
though. And that really, because that morning when they had their breakfast, you could kind of tell they were not happy.
Yeah.
Because they were like, they had the plague. We want to go play. We want to go back on that.
Yeah.
And so that lifted their spirits a little bit. They really appreciated that.
Oh, sure.
And that was $110, I think, for the movie. But listen, for what they had to do and put up, that was a bargain for the county.
I think so.
And the jury verdict, when they came back, because I talked to a couple of them, like, how did you get to this point? I mean, they just like, man, they took it serious. We studied this, and we had one that was kind of iffy on this, and that's why it took 2 or 3 days took 2 days to finally come down to the verdict. And
did they just go point by point, or did they reveal how they deliberated? No. And does the judge? I mean, does he question them? I know didn't he ask each one about did he do an individual verdict?
At the end, he has to ask each one of them.
And
so that the jury, there's jury instructions.
Yeah. And
so it was 120 pages of what their instructions of how they're supposed to go in and deliberate. So he has to read that. They even do that and Judge Spitzer does that today on jury instructions. They have to read every line by line and then give it to them, because he doesn't want somebody to come back and say, well, I didn't understand that, or I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to hand it to you.
Wow.
So it took, I think, 2 hours for him to read 120 pages. You talking about
boring.
I'd rather watch paint dry. I mean, it's awful. But they did. I watched every one of them. They could just see them just line by line. And like I said, that when I knew they were taking it serious is when I literally had to go back and buy more filler paper for their notebooks.
You knew that was.
Yeah, I said, man, these guys are taking it really serious.
Outside of being a clerk, step out of the job, and just as Rex as a person, what do you take out of it? What's your perspective of it? I mean, like you said, somebody's dead and somebody's gonna be dead.
Well, I'm impressed of how serious the state takes it. I just you see these people kill people or allegedly do this stuff, and you just like, send them out. But the state took it very serious. I mean, they were meticulous in all the details, the questions, the process. This guy got every chance in the world, and sometimes you think it's we gave him more attention than we did Miss Paxton that died. But the state wants to be fair. I mean, like I said, if you're going to take somebody's life, better dang be sure of it. It brought about, she was the victim. I mean, this guy's getting all the attention for the trial and stuff. But this Miss Paxton, man, she was she was homeless, and she didn't ask for all that. And when it's all said and done, like I said, I'm not sure that we know exactly who pulled the trigger. It was a combination of the two. She played as much, I think there's some doubt, I think Dishman was very much involved with it just as much as he was.
Absolutely.
I kind of felt like when I stepped back and everybody's like, well, I'm not sure. Did she do it? Because there's some reasons why some of the evidence showed that she very well could have been the, one that
strangled her or whatever,
finished her off.
Yeah.
But then I thought, why did he keep her in the freezer? It's like his trophy.
Oh, yeah.
When I've killed a big buck, I mount that. It's on my wall. That's my trophy. If my wife hit one with a car, I'm going to go bury the evidence. I don't want to.
Exactly.
So that's the only reason I kind of felt.
That. Congratulations on getting it done so well. And like I said, I really thought something like this would cost a whole lot more than it did.
Everything's good. Appreciate you having me up. I had somebody text me a question about the cost. Did that include the judges and his expenses? But no, the state paid everything involved with the judge and his staff. The state pays that.
So about $65,000 out of the 70 or 80 that you had overage. So we're still in the black.
Yeah, we're fine. We got a little bit left over. So
okay. Anytime, come back. Thanks for coming up, Rex. I appreciate it. Have a good day, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. You've been listening to pre-recorded Best of edition of Ask Your Neighbor on WYSH.
Thank you for listening to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Make sure you tune in at 10 a.m. each day, Monday through